perception management, an abridged list of operations. Antica Babylonia, Baghdad, Bastille, Abilene, Suicide Kings, Gun Barrel City, God Help Us, Allah, Allah, Army Santa, Cave Dwellers, Rock Bottom, Plymouth Rock, Rat Trap, Cow Pens, Baghdad is Beautiful, Backbreaker, Block Party, Swashbuckle, Swarmers, Punisher, Beastmaster, Flea Flicker, Firecracker, Lightning Hammer, Iraqi Home Protector, Tombstone Piledriver, Bone Breaker, Iron Reaper, Bel Huria, Enjoy Freedom, Spring Break, Rocket Man, Gladiator, Outlaw Destroyer, Dirty Harry, Gold Digger, Unforgiven, Raging Bull, Thundercat, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Shadyville, Hickory View, Scorpion Sting, Eagle Liberty, Wolfhound Fury, Falcon Sweep, Falcon Freedom, Scales of Justice, Rapier Thrust, Relentless Hunt, Wolf Stalk, Swamp Fox, Tomahawk, Crazy Horse Thunder, Geronimo Strike, Patriot Strike, Quick Strike, Restoring Rights, Constitution Hammer, Industrial Revolution, Moneyworth, Rodeo, Aloha, Focus, Floodlight, Harvest Light, Red Light, Red Bull, Pit Bull, Brutus, Hermes, Sledgehammer, Grizzly Forced Entry, Vacant City, Riverwalk, Iraqi Heart, Rubicon, Ramadan Roundup, Goodwill, Little Man, Al-Kamra Al-Maner, Moonlight, Saloon, Stallion Run, Lion Hunt, Al-Salam, Peace, Justice Reach, Rock Reaper, Demon Digger, Raider Harvest, Iron Justice, United Fist, White Rockets, Donkey Island, Barnstormer, Souk Jadid, New Market, Church, Checkmate, Knockout, Backpack, Soccer Ball, Doctor, Therapist, Helping Hand, School Supplies, Cool Spring, Open Window, Glad Tidings of Benevolence. Personal effects. Like guns and cars, cameras are fantasy machines whose use is addictive. Susan Sontag. I place a photograph of my uncle on my computer desktop, which means I learn to ignore it. He stands by a tank, helmet tilting to his right, bootlaces tightened as if stitching together a wound. Alive, the hand brings up a cigarette we won't see him taste. Last night, I smoked one on the steps outside my barn apartment, a promise I broke myself. He promised himself he wouldn't, and did. I smell my fingers, and I am smelling his, hands of smoke and gunpowder, hands that promised they wouldn't, but did. This album is a stop-loss. By a dim lantern or in the latrine, he flips through it. He looks at himself, looking nearly as he does, closest to himself then as he could be, just learning how to lean into his new body. He suspends there, by standing order, a spreading fire in his chest, his groin. He is on stage for us to see him. See him? He stands in the noontime sun. A young soldier, pictured above, the son of an imam, brother to 6, is among the latest casualties in the military campaign of Susan Gerd. Your whole body in a photo. Your whole body. Sitting on a crate, pressing your eye socket to the viewfinder of a bazooka, crouched as you balance the metal tube on your shoulder. In one, you guide a belt of ammo into the unfiring weapon, proud, your elbow out as if mid-waltz, your frame strong and lightly supporting the gun, a kind of smile ruining the picture. You're posing. You're scared. A body falls and you learn to step over a loosened head. You begin to appreciate the heft of your boot soles, how they propel you, how they can kick in a face. The collapse of a canopy bed in an aerial bombardment, mosquito netting doused in napalm. Cheekbones fragile as moth wings beneath the heel. You tighten your laces until they hold together a capable man. Whatever reigns, the weight of your feet swings you forward, goose-stepping pendulums, a body less and less yours. A body, God knows, is not what makes you anyway. So the hands that said they never would begin finding grenade pins around their fingers begin flipping through this album with soot under their nails. You were not ready, but they issued the shovel and the rifle, and you dug. But to watch you sitting there between the sandbags, but to watch the sand spilling out the bullet holes. But what did they expect? But what did they really think a sheet of metal could prevent? But I sat, rolling little ears of pasta off my thumb like helmets. But it was not a table of fallen men. But my hand registered fatigue. But the men in fatigues were tired of sleeping in shifts. But you snuck into town and dialed home until you wrote your fingers were tired. But the code for Shiraz was down. But all of Shiraz was down. But the sheet lightning above the Ferris wheel of rusted bolts. But I'm sure they are all right, you wrote. Well, to reassure yourself. But the wind, like an old mouth shaking the unnamed evergreen outside my window. But what I mean is I'd like very much to talk a bit. Hello. Operation Ramadan was an offensive in the Iran-Iraq War. It was launched by Iran in July 1982 near Basra and featured the use of human wave attacks in one of the largest land battles since World War II. Aftermath. The operation was the first of many disastrous offensives which cost thousands of lives on both sides. This one in general boosted the casualty limit up to 80,000 killed, 200,000 wounded, and 45,000 captured. In retrospect, the Iranians lacked effective command and control, air support, and logistics to sustain an attack in the first place. Saddam Hussein offered several ceasefire attempts in the following years, none of which were accepted by the revolutionary regime. Congratulations and condolences, they would say. That's the house of a martyr, pointing with their nose. That's the mother of a martyr. They are building a museum for the martyrs. Some metal shelf, a white archival box with his personal effects. I am attempting my own myth-making. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. White-shrouded, they circled his corpse, the ridge of his nose peeking the sheet, or shaded by the box lid around Shah Shura. Daily, I sit with the language they've made of our language to neutralize the capability of low-dollar value items like you. You are what is referred to as a casualty. Unclear whether from a catalytic or frontal attack. Unclear the final time you were addressed thou beloved. It was for us a catastrophic event. Just destroyed. Died of wounds received in action. Yes, there was early warning. You said you were especially scared of mortar rounds. In execution planning, they weighed the losses, the sustainability, and budgeted for X number. They budgeted for the phone call to your mother and weighed that against the amount saved in rations and your taste for cigarettes and the tea you poured your boys and the tea you would have poured me approaching hello. The change you collected in jars, jumping a bit as the family learns to slam the home's various doors. How could she say the things she does not know? A poison-tipped arrow, she told classmates at recess, to the neck, hollow whistle of it launched from a blowgun, cutting the air between them. According to most definitions, I have never been at war. According to mine, most of my life spent there. Anthrax and salt and pepper shakers, patrol car windshields with crosshairs painted over them, some badge holding my father's pocket contents up to him and asking where the cash is from. The war in Iraq, I read, is over now. The last wheels gathering into themselves as they lift off the sad tarmac. I say, begin. I say, end, and you are to believe this is what happens. I say, chew 40 times before swallowing, slime, and you go home to mother. Press a dog tag to your temple. Press a gun to that, the tag flowering into your skull. Thank God for all-weather floor mats and the slope of my personal driveway and beer cans that change color to let me know they are cold enough. The full-sized cab smelling of iron and Axe body spray. In 2003, a man held a fistful of blood and brains to a PBS camera and yelled, "Is this the freedom they want for us?" It was from his friend's head. They were marching as they figured Americans do. Between them, hardly 3 horsepower, and still we shot him. We say the war is over, but still the woman leans across the passenger seat. My son, my son. I wasn't there, so I can't know, can I? His mother's bed, a grief we don't attempt to console. I killed him, she'll tell me years later. Fuck celestial guidance. I killed him, she'll say, in the midst of civil affairs. He surprises, he arrives, eyes taped shut, torso held together by black thread, fridge cold. Grief is a closed area, cluttered with his fork against the plate and other forgotten musics. The enlarged ID photo above her mantel means I can know amu, my dear collateral damage, as only a state or a school might do. Each photo is an absence, a thing gone, namely a moment, sometimes cities, a tour boat balanced on a 2-story home miles from shore. He was, we hope, moved, but we will have to guess by what. Shampoo in her wet hair, salty and fried breads, the chase scene and bullets, Sangok, fresh from the oven, dampening the newspaper on the walk home from the baker's, the arms of someone who smells nice to him in the morning, the mouth of someone laced with bergamot or cardamom, who dances in the kitchen and lets whatever's on the stove burn, who burns for him, and beside him they burned, they boiled, they fell, shortly after a loud sound that makes him piss himself. Being nice to others. Loose change. Chess. He could beat all the brothers in chess. He was moved like that, across a minefield, moved by a hand we cannot see, a hand that is all our hands combined. At the bank of some pond or salt marsh, tall grass, mustache, eyes closed, facing the sun, hands appear dead by a fashion photographer's standard, your boots, like in the other photos, well worn, your nails square and closely cut. They are my nails, the army-issued belt I would wear with Dickies, the army jacket, the Doc Martens, the military gear that would stomp through my father's home. Take that poster down, my father said. It was Saddam in crosshairs. You are surrounded by the tall grass, and still I want to hiss, get down, get down. So lit and tall, a stupid thin helmet between you and the gods. As Tolstoy wrote in a letter. And yet, from nearby, all this wasn't at all as frightening as might be supposed. It was a question of who would burn the most powder, and at the very most, 30 men were killed on both sides by these thousands of cannon shots. Or as I gleaned from your letters, Wood and Mashhad, and my own broken Farsi, Freefall. Then radio silence, an order to disarm, stay. December. They say move, oil lamp. 2 minds as an anti-imperialist. Tried to disarm, tried. Maybe by the time you... Well, okay. Sorry. Sorry. For this, by the time you... Asking to bring you a camera, an automatic, please. I searched the cities where you were stationed. A ring of schoolboys laid out on the plastic tarp, their crooked joints. A middle-aged man with ground meat where his foot used to be. I looked to see if I could find you netting over your helmet. In one letter, you named the 7th killed in your company. Well, maybe I am next. You didn't say much else, but he must have, to record the one name, and that being the name of a dead man. Okay, bye for real this time, you signed off on page 6. His father grew very quiet. His father would heavy drop sob behind a closed door. His father was person eligible to receive effects, a pillbox of opium in his sock drawer. You hand-plucked wild poppies to soldier friends. Imagine the wetness at the broken stem. Me and 2 girls at a Birmingham back fence, clearing almost an entire vine of honeysuckles. That sugar tasting vaguely of grass, carnage of petals, and pistols licked clean at our little bee feet. What I see are your hands peeling apples, the skin curling to the floor in one long unravel, a spit-up film reel loosened from its canister. And I'm not even sure they are apples, quince, pear, some desert potato with a stem. From the number of peels, I assume you are feeding the other men in your tent. Your head is down. Maybe the cameraman asked you to look at him and you couldn't stomach it. Maybe around you, today, they fell until you didn't understand how you hadn't been hit. I decide you are happy for the knife in your hands, the white dust on your bare feet. I am happy to see your bare feet in this photo. They are the only things that made me cry. It's that they existed and that they, appalling, look so dead already. I think it's fair to say you want to do something with your hands, whether or not the photographer placed the apples in front of you, whether or not they are apples, whether or not earlier that day you saw a friend's lungs peeking out the back of his throat. I cannot name the weapons leaning on the wall behind you. Kalashnikovs? Howitzers? As you write a letter. I wrote, I burn my finger on the broiler and smell trenches, my uncle pissing himself. How can she write that? She doesn't know. A friend, a daughter of a Vietnam vet, told another friend, another daughter of a Vietnam vet. It was his bare toes that made me cry, because I realized then he had toes, and because dusted in the white desert sand, they looked like a corpse's toes, while his hands worked off a peel inches above the earth. Operation Nasra, fought in early January 1981, was a major battle of the Iran-Iraq War. 3 Iranian armored regiments advanced towards Iraqi forces who had invaded Iranian territory between the cities of Avaz, Susangerd, and Desville. The Iraqi forces were alerted to this movement and feigned a withdrawal. The Iraqis formed 3 armored regiments into a 3-sided box ambush. The Iranians blundered into the ambush, and the 2 tank forces battled for 4 days in a sea of mud. The battle had been ordered by President Abdul Hassan Bani Sadra, who was hoping that a victory might shore up his deteriorating political position. Instead, the failure of the offensive helped to hasten his fall. I write him daily, and so I learn to ignore him. And so I begin to list pocket contents as if filing an autopsy report. And I place in his hands a metal tongue of a fly. And I place in his hands a metal tongue of a tank control board. And I place in his hands a Bic lighter and loose leaf paper. And I place in his hands a trigger, a shutter, and still not even a bar of his laughter. And by April, the script in his letters grew tighter, barbed, men in a shoulder-width trench. And when I sounded out M-E-N to mean mine, a hole appeared in the letter, and I couldn't look at it. And I drove into pothole after pothole, and I drove past 100 balloons held down in a net, and gone even the netting over his helmet. And alive we bring up the hands to hold together his neck, and I place in his hands his head, and I place in his hands my hands, and I place in his eyes a look we share in the rear view. And I place between us a bar of laughter, and I place between us the looking and the telling they want dead. Amu. In a tarot card reading, A asks, "Are you open to love? Are you keeping love in mind?" Amu, I think. Amu. The word amon, a blown kiss, the soft things it makes a mouth do. Amu, I thought, as he told me about the Page of Cups, the echo of what I've never called you. Hello, you'd approach in the international terminal. I'd be disheveled from the search, raw. Hello, do you know who I am? Amu Javad, I'd say. The things a mouth wishes to Amu Jan, or Amu Javad, or Amu Jun Javad. Janam, you would respond. My life, my soul, you'd say. Language and its expectations teaches us about the relationship we would have had. Na keer, for example. That we need words for refusal makes it likely we would refuse things of each other. Or bale, as in you say, do you know who I am? And I respond, though you could be a number of brothers from our albums. Yes. I wrote, I burn my finger on the broiler and smell trenches, my uncle pissing himself. How can she write that? She doesn't know. As if a film projection caught in theater dust, I play it out. I approach you in the new Imam Khomeini airport, fluorescent lit linoleum. You walk up to meet me, both palms behind your back like a haji. You stoop, extend a hand. Hello. Do you know who I am? Yes, I tell you. I half lie. Yes. An address, beloved, lit a rooftop of doves, crouched to launch. Yes, Amu. How could I not?